Hello, I'm Sam from Jessup Says. The focus of my channel is to share and educate on how we can buy less, buy better. It's on how we can make smarter and more informed decisions before we purchase to ensure that what we purchase is both fit for purchase and made to last. It's probably no secret by now that my fashion tastes are fairly classically inspired. This style choice isn't just because the brands that create this kind of clothing are typically more considerate of buy less, buy better factors than, let's say, fast fashion brands though. I also appreciate the history of fashion, where it's come from, and also where it's going. I'm trying more and more to explore outside of my comfort zone, whether it's streetwear or workwear or something else entirely. Experimentation is what makes fashion fun, when you have the confidence to do so, that is. A trend that I've noticed and never really liked the look of though is chunky footwear. For Goodyear welted shoes, this is typically represented by a thick wedge sole, something that you might see on a mock toe like those of the iconic Thorogood, and you may see your workwear or builder mate wearing them on the weekends. But what about if you put that sole on a shoe? What about on what is arguably the most iconic and classic country shoe in the world? Introducing the Trickers Bourton, pronounced Bourton, not Burton, or so I'm told by a master of the English language up in those parts of the world. My pair are in Kudu Suede with a Vibram wedge sole. First up, I wanted to start with an overview of what we know about the shoe. They're made by Trickers in Northampton, England, a historic town known for a lot of famous footwear brands like Crockett & Jones, Edward Green, and many, many others. The upper leather is Kudu Suede in what's called a peanut color, basically a dark beige. They feature a 360-degree Goodyear welt, which is technically a storm welt, so there's a little lip that improves the waterproofing. The Vibram wedge outsole, and they retail for 415 Great British pounds, so around 750 Australian dollars or 570 US dollars, depending on the exchange rate. And finally, I purchased my pair from an online retailer named John Anthony. They're based out of the UK, and I actually only paid 99 Great British pounds, which is just under 200 US and AUD. Now let's get into more detail and discuss my experience over the last 3 weeks since these shoes arrived. The Bourton is an iconic country shoe that has been in production since at least 1937. At the time, Trickers commissioned 2 lasts to celebrate King George VI's coronation. One of those lasts, the 4444 or all fours, is the same last that is used today on the Bourton shoe. The last is one of the most important parts of any footwear. The last is basically a piece of wood that the leather is pulled over to form the shape of the shoe. The volume of the last, where it curves in and out, and what kind of foot shape it accommodates, they're all essential components of if a shoe is comfortable or not, and whether a shoe fits. A quick little tip, if you put your foot into a shoe and it immediately feels uncomfortable, or it's too tight in any one area, pick a different last. Leather does stretch, but not enough to accommodate a last that doesn't fit your foot. It's important to know that. As for this last, the all the fours, it's actually very comfortable right out of the box. I have fairly short and wide feet, I'm a 6.5 UK, but they're not exceptional by any means. A shoemaker once called my feet wide but normal. The all the fours last accommodates my feet very comfortably. It hugs my arch and my heel without feeling tight, and has plenty of room for my toes. Basically all you could ask for out of ready-to-wear footwear and a ready-to-wear last. I am truly impressed with this and understand why they're using the same last over 85 years later. The design of the Bourton is what you may imagine when you're imagining a classic English shoe for strolling around the countryside. It's a derby shoe. Yes, I finally took the plunge and got one. The shoe is a short wing, features broguing across all of the panels and around the facings, and it even has a medallion on the toe. The final country shoe feature is, like I said earlier, the storm wells, which provides an additional waterproof seal between the shoe's upper and the sole. Trickers was established in 1829 by a 19-year-old master shoemaker, Joseph Trickers, making it the oldest factory in the world, as far as I can find. If you can take yourself back in time, it was a year when America elected their 7th president, Andrew Jackson. It was a year when the first modern police force, the Bobbies, were established in London. King George IV was ruling Great Britain, and if King George IV doesn't ring any bells, I don't blame you. Consider that Queen Victoria and the Victorian era was still 10 years away, and men and women at the time dressed fairly differently to what we do today. Over the many years they've been open, Trickers have made shoes for some very interesting people, including one that I found of particular interest, you could say, countryman, Sir Edmund Hillary. It was a few years after his ascent of Everest in 1953, Sir Ed commissioned Trickers boots for himself and for his expedition team for the first ever ascent of the 3rd most popular mountain in the Himalayas, named Amadablan. I'm unsure if they used the Trickers shoes in their climb, but it would be safe to assume. The leather of the Bourton is also an experimental piece for me. It's made from a leather called Kudu, sourced from the legendary tannery C.F. Stead. Kudu is a leather made out of African antelope. C.F. Stead have been working closely with African communities since around about the early 2000s to obtain sustainable skins from wild antelope when they do their annual cull. The Kudu leather is known to be extremely unique on its flesh side, basically the non-suede side. There are typically tons of natural cuts and grazes all over the hide, showing the hard environment that the antelope live in. The hide itself is known to be extremely lightweight, very strong, and very supple. And it's pretty much true for all of those things. Though being a suede, I don't get the amazing patterning that you may see on the other side of the flesh, which is a bit of a shame because it's quite cool. They look basically perfect, and I expect them to stay that way forever. It's one of the amazing things about suede. It always looks smooth, it always looks perfect. It never really takes a crease in any kind of way. I wanted to quickly talk about the wedge outsole. I know it isn't everyone's style and it's not really mine, though I did say I was trying to explore outside of my comfort zone, so that's the reason why I tried it. Though I have actually enjoyed wearing them so far, they are very comfortable. The outsole is created by Vibram, or potentially Vibram, a company that has been making outsoles for the harshest conditions in the world since 1937. The company's founder, Vitale Brahmani, was a talented mountaineer and designed his soles specifically for that kind of terrain. Today though, the Vibram sole that I have on these is called a Vibram Moreflex Christie sole. I believe it's style number 4014. The sole is made from an expanded EVA-based rubber compound and is designed to be lightweight, shock absorbent, and extremely comfortable. And it is all of those things. Finally, I wanted to get to the price. Admittedly, what I paid was way too little for these shoes, and the price is a large part in why I purchased the shoes. I knew they would be indestructible, I knew that they would be well made, and I knew that they'd last my lifetime and beyond. I just hope my kids have the same size feet, which, shouldn't be too hard. There are those out there like the famous Tico Blanco who are staunchly anti-wedge. But I bought these because I knew that due to 360-degree Goodyear welt, that if I didn't like the sole, that it could be relatively easily and relatively cheaply changed to something more traditional like a leather sole. As I said earlier, I plan to do an entire video on this point, because I think there's something to be said for buying a shoe that fits well, but may not be aesthetically perfect, and then making small, not necessarily expensive changes with a skilled cobbler to make the shoe more suit your style. And ultimately, you end up spending a lot less on a product that may last you a lifetime, compared to buying a shoe from, your local retailer, which lasts a year or maybe 2 at best, and potentially cost more, at least here in Australia. I've really enjoyed my first foray into Trickers shoes. After my experience with other Northampton makers like Crockett & Jones and Edward Green, I was actually expecting to be impressed, and have been so. They are very comfortable. They're made from a great Kudu leather from CF Stead, and I can see myself wearing these for many years to come. Let's see how they age. Thanks very much for watching. Links are in the description as always, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.